The Colorado Buffaloes pulled off one of the biggest upsets in college football this past weekend. Did that just change the trajectory of their season?
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. We're also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on a moment of any of the Colorado coverage, because the Buffs, they could be storming back. We're going to talk about their potentially season-changing win against Iowa State this past weekend, who the best transfers have been for Deion Sanders, and then we're going to take a little drive down the mountains and talk about Utah or BYU. And joining me today is Denver Sports' 104.3 AP. He also does the Locked On Buffs postcast. You guys see him right after the game in the booth, just possibly getting kicked out by an older fella. I don't know. AP, appreciate you hopping on. How you doing?
Pleasure. And yeah, we had a couple of comments in the last couple of shows, like asking where you were when I'm doing my postcast. So just to make it clear, yes, you're still here. I'm doing my thing, and we're coming together for some collaboration shows. So yeah, I do the post-game shows. You do the standard podcast, and we'll do some crossover work here as well. But on the road for a little bit. So no booth for me for a little while here for the CU Buffs, but happy to be here, my friend. Happy to be here.
Yeah, no, we try to be the LeBron and Wade meme where we come together perfect, and it's fun when we come together. So AP, the Buffs needed a win, and I think a lot of people were concerned that Iowa State was coming to town because they have historically not had a lot of success against ranked teams, right? And I'm at a wedding, of course, in the middle of the Pennsylvania mountains, as one does during football, to support a friend.
Weddings,
fall weddings. And love Lucas, though, he's a great guy. But I'm watching this game and I'm going, wow, this looks like a completely different Colorado team. What did you see from this game?
Yeah, I mean, I got to be honest with you. I did not have CU winning this game, at least leading up to it. And, I'm at my day job here in the Denver market working for the sports media outlet. And, a couple people that are really into college football, like, pull me aside and say, like, you ready for this CU upset on Saturday? And I'm like, no. Like, I haven't seen it from them, over the course of the season. I've never questioned their talent. I just question them coming together in clutch moments and whatnot. And then we get up there and I kind of like do a little bit more of a deep dive, see some injuries for Iowa State and whatnot. And really, I think that plays a factor into this as well. This is Colorado's first ranked win under Deion, I believe, since his first game as head coach against TCU. So we're going way back there as well. And, it looked like a team. I tweeted it out at Media by AP before the game. This was their season, because a loss in that game against Iowa State, I think, I don't know if they make the quarterback change to Juju Lewis, but you're kind of down and out at that point. Right. And so they had to come out there and play like a team with their back against the wall. And I think they did that. Kaidon Salter, I thought, played pretty well on offense. His best game, I think, so far of the season, making some good passes. The defense showed up. I mean, only allowing 17 points to the then 22nd ranked Iowa State Cyclones team is pretty darn good. And obviously we know Rocco Becht has been, the heartbeat of that team. He was playing. I know they had some other injuries, but it looked like a team that just came together and played for each other. I mean, Kaidon Salter stepped up. You saw some good runs. Joseph Williams got involved with the 8 receptions for the 128 yards, and they were aggressive. I mean, that 3rd and 13 play call there at the end of the game, where if they don't get that or if they punt, you give Iowa State some life, they went for the kill. And so it looked like a team, like I said, that played with their back against the wall, and they were rewarded for that.
Yeah, I think me and you were texting before the game, and I said if they lose this game, I'm going to expect that some rearranging on the staff, and I thought coaches were going to lose jobs, honestly. I thought that's where we were getting to that point in the year where it's like, okay, you have to make changes, right? Because you have to start not punt on this season, but you fall to 5 losses with a few more tough games to go. You have to sort of figure out what can be fixed right now, or at least what can start to be fixed. And so that's where my mindset was. I was like, I think that Iowa State is probably going to be pissed off because they had just lost to Cincinnati in a weird fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And they were ready to bounce back. And I had talked to our Locked On Cyclones host, Nick Maravitz, and he's like, yeah, I think that was just a fluke. He's like, I think Iowa State's going to be back. And I was like, okay, we'll see. And I was like, if that's the case, Colorado loses, Deion Sanders has to make some tough decisions, right? Because he's close with everybody on his staff. A lot of them are lifelong friends of his. And I think this win bought everybody some time. Kaidon Salter included, like you mentioned. I think he had the best game of the season. He was one of the 5 highest graded quarterbacks on PFF over the weekend. He played mistake-free football, which over the past 2 or 3 games was not something he did, right? He had 3 picks against TCU. He had a pick against BYU that ended the game. Like, he was not the confident guy that we thought we were going to see. And all of a sudden, maybe this gets his mojo going, right? And now you have 2 weeks to prepare for Utah. So I think this win, while I don't want to say that Colorado is now in the Big 12 race, because I feel like that's still a little too premature, I do think that this win could possibly flip a switch, and all of a sudden Colorado is very much in a strong position to make a bowl game. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, that's why I go back to like the outcome of this game, I think ultimately could end up defining the season for CU. Because again, if they lose that game, I think it's about, keeping guys happy that you want to keep on the team next year and just trying to get to a bowl game. Whereas now, yeah, like the outside chance at the Big 12 and some other things are still very much in play. But, it was much needed. It was about time that this Colorado offense in particular, really showed up, in particular, Kaidon Salter, who's been, the brunt of a lot of criticism. And, some of it fair, some of it unfair, coming in, after what Deion Sanders did last year, you have to expect some natural drop off. But to your point, it's the way they were losing. Like that TCU game, I mean, you just don't throw one of those interceptions, you might end up winning that football game, right? So I think it was a big step in the right direction for CU. And this can't be stated enough. I mean, the fact that Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, had surgery one day, was at practice the next morning by 9 a.m. And I'm down there on the field, man. He's running around before the game, dapping up his players, pumping up his players. You would have no idea that this guy just underwent a medical procedure. And so I think the players in that locker room checked themselves at the door and said, hey, Coach Prime did this and that, and look at how he's acting. And I'm healthy, and all I got to do go out there and play football. Like the players gave Coach Prime the energy back that he gave to them. I don't think that could be understated or overstated enough.
Yeah, first of all, Deion Sanders, dog, right? I mean,
Absolute
he
dog.
had beats cancer in the offseason, has surgery this past weekend, is back the next day. I had the sniffles over the weekend. It took me out for a while. Okay, I'm no Deion Sanders, I'll admit. But no, I think for Colorado, they needed a mentality change as well, and I think you kind of just hit on that. They needed to feel some confidence, and I feel like this team has quickly been beat up this year, especially Kaidon Salter, right? I think he's let the outside noise affect him at times. There's been instances of him getting into it with fans on social media. That video, I believe, is from the TCU game where he's talking to Deion Sanders, and Deion Sanders goes, "You had more time," and he's like, he was like, "Which play?" And then immediately goes, "They called the wrong play," and like so many people like jumped on him, and I think Kaidon Salter needed a strong game to just sort of get everybody off his back. And if you're Colorado now, you hope that this can be sustained, right? Because Utah is going to be a tough opponent. That being said, I don't think Utah is as good as they were made out to be in the preseason, where it was like their league, like the league runs through Salt Lake City. I don't think it's that case. I don't think it's the case. I think they're a solid team. I think they're a good team, but they're beatable. And Colorado has played every team closely this year. The worst game Colorado's had is against Houston, right? The TCU score is not very indicative of like what actually happened, right?
Yeah.
It was a 2-score game, but Colorado was in it till the very end. So I think Colorado could play them close. And I think with a newfound confidence, a couple weeks to prepare, Utah is on an upset alert. That's my take on the matter. We'll just leave it at that. I think they're on upset alert via the Buffs over here. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about who have been the best transfers for Coach Prime in year 3. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Supply House. Now, if you don't know what Supply House is, write this down, because there's an opening. When the opening whistle blows, on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow, literally the next day. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory, honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. Their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. This episode of Locked On Buffs is also brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, which means you need to get in on the fun action over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and you get $300 back in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something right on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. It's Kevin Borba. It's AP, your favorite Locked On Buffs hosts with plural. I host the Locked On Buffs Daily Show. He hosts the Locked On Buffs Postcast. And now we're going to start crossing over even more because we're just two lads who want to talk some ball. AP, let's talk transfers. So earlier this week, I graded the offense and the defense. Like I went through each player, talked about what they've done well, what they've done not so well. Gave them an A to F grade. For offense, there was a lot of higher grades. You know, the offense, that was the good class, if you will. I think the lowest grade was honestly Kaidon Salter. I gave him a D+, but I did say that if he came and talked to the teacher, I'd round it up. So it was one of those like 69.8 grades where it's like, you come talk to the teacher, maybe be like, hey, I'll work better next semester. Like they round it up for you, right?
Right.
The top grades for me, Joseph Williams, Sincere Brown. And then defensively, lowest grade, Jaheim Otis. I would say he's probably one of the bigger disappointments, arguably in the transfer portal, just because he was such a highly touted guy, was at one point the number one defensive tackle in the portal, and he's pretty much fallen out of favor with the coaches, right? They're pretty thin at defensive tackle, and he's not playing. So there's something to be said there. So walk me through, who has been your best transfer? We could start on whatever side of the ball that you'd prefer.
Oof. I mean, the two guys that come to mind are both offensive guys. I think it's got to be one of either Joseph Williams or Sincere Brown, just because of the impact that we've seen. Now, I think Joseph Williams, you know, we've seen him really start to get these opportunities the last couple of weeks. I don't think it's ever been a question of talent with Joseph Williams. I think it's just about play calling and whatnot. So I think he's been, you know, as advertised, if not better than advertised, with this CU Buffs team coming from Tulsa, obviously, to CU via the transfer portal. So I think he's been great. And Sincere Brown, you know, I know it's been a bit of an up and down season for CU on offense, but it seems like when CU has some chunk plays, has some explosives, he's always at the top of the list as one of those guys. So I'd say Joseph Williams and Sincere Brown, I think they hit, you know, A's on both of those guys out of the transfer portal. They've been stellar for him on offense.
Yeah, I totally agree with the Joseph Williams one. And he was probably someone I was most excited about. In the offseason, I did this series where I interviewed someone from every program who covered wherever these transfers came from. And when I interviewed someone from Tulsa, they said that Joseph had really only been playing wide receiver for a couple of years. He played a little bit of quarterback in high school. And I think that's why we've seen Colorado try to attempt a few passes with him because he has that quarterback background. I think he's been an absolute star for them. Another guy who I've been very high on, and I don't know if he'll get the love because he's in the trenches, is Zarian McGill, the center. One of the highest graded blockers in all of college football. And for Colorado's whole offensive line, and I think a lot of this is because of Jordan Seaton as well, but for Colorado's offensive line to be a smash hit after back-to-back years of allowing 40-plus sacks, like, that's a big deal. And I think it all starts with Zarian McGill. I think how quickly Colorado fans forget that, like, just last year, Hank Salinkas was snapping the ball off of Shador's chest when he wasn't looking. Cash Cleveland was basically, like, throwing his arms up in the air in frustration against BYU with how physical they were. And Zarian McGill has come in right away, claimed the job. And I think when they brought in Cooper Lovelace from Northwestern, a lot of people thought it was like, oh, Cooper's going to take that job from Zarian. And that hasn't happened. So Zarian's been very reliable. He's one of my top transfers for the Buffs. And then the other name, I agree with AP over there. You got to go with Joseph Williams. I think him and Omarion Miller can probably form one of the better wide receiver combinations in the Big 12.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we're starting to see it. Unfortunately, it's taken 7 games for Colorado to figure these things out. But, hey, if you feed Joseph Williams the ball, good things will happen. Okay, let's swing over to the defensive side of the ball. Who's the guy that's caught your eye?
I think it's one guy. I mean, because he's been – not just because he's a transfer, but I think he's been probably the best defensive player for the Buffs this season. It's Tafik Bayard, the safety. I mean, this guy is an absolute dog, man. And I, had the opportunity to be in these press conferences after these games, after wins, after losses. And the thing that's most impressive to me is his mentality is the exact same. And you hear that, like, you don't want to get too high, you don't want to get too low, you want to be in the middle. And I think Tafik Bayard embodies that to the absolute fullest. I mean, he looks like a leader of this defense. He's evolved as a leader 100%. You and I were talking a little bit before we got started with this show. I mean, we'll see what happens with him the rest of his collegiate career, but this is a guy that has it, from the neck up to be an NFL player, just like the right mindset. And it's really brought some tenacity and some toughness to this CU Buffs defense. I know there's been some instances where they haven't been so great this year. Obviously he wasn't here the last couple of years as well, but he's been a really big guy for this CU Buffs team, especially as they struggled a little bit, maybe more than expected at cornerback. He's really set the tone on the defensive end. So Tafik Byard, man, he's been stellar.
Yeah, and I don't want to copy AP here. I'm not trying to plagiarize the man, but you got to go Tafik Byard.
Yeah, you have to.
I went through the transfer portal class yesterday, so go check out my grades for the defense. I think Tafik Byard was one of the few people that he was the only A, and there wasn't very many passing grades, unfortunately, for this class. I think for the most part, they have largely underwhelmed. But Tafik Byard has been everything advertised. He came on the show shortly after he committed, and he talked about wanting to lead. He talked about how he has an older brother who's in the NFL, and he's learned a lot from him, and he just needs an opportunity to play. He played a lot of USF, but he needs an opportunity to play at the highest level of college football. And he starts the year as a reserve, right? I think he was a little banged up, and so they have Ben Finiseth and Carter Stottmeyer out there as the two safeties. And we were all wondering where Tafik Byard was. And then as soon as he comes in, instant impact, right? He changes. You could put him in the box to help stop the run, which has been an issue for Colorado. He could help out in coverage. He had the game-sealing interception against Iowa State. Whether or not there was PI behind him, we don't need to discuss because the refs picked up the flag. But he just is always in the right place at the right time. He leads the team in tackling. And I think you touched on it best. It's his leadership that really encourages me, because when you have a unit that is not what you thought it would be, it's very easy for the unit to sort of dissolve and turn into like, well, I'm doing the right thing, or
right,
I'm doing this right. I'm doing this correctly. It's him over there. But I don't think Tafik Byard's letting that happen. And I think if you were to have to find a positive from this defense, most people would circle Tafik Byard, right? He has been a revelation. And then the freshman, of course, but we're not talking true freshmen today. We're talking transfers. But Tafik Byard, I think he's been a star. And I just feel like hopefully Colorado can retain him, because this is sort of where I'm at now with college football. I'm just like, there's a possibility that someone's going to be like, yeah, that Tafik Byard kid's really good. Here's $500,000. Come over to this SEC school, this Big Ten school. So I hope they could keep him. But I do think that which he seems like a true culture guy. Like, I don't think he's going to be like certain players who have left Colorado for the bag that maybe doesn't work out for at their next stop. But I think he's a guy with multiple years of eligibility. So he could sort of be the standard for Colorado moving forward. AP, if you were to go back in time and talk yourself off the cliff of like, okay, this transfer position group is not as good as we thought it would be, or this group over exceeded my expectations, what would you go with when it comes to this transfer portal class?
I'm not sure if there's been a position group that's exceeded my expectations. Like, I think that talking about Joseph Williams, I think he's lived up to the expectation, right? I think Sincere Brown, I got to be honest, I didn't know much about him before this year, so maybe I'm a bit surprised by him, but just from what we've seen, I guess I'm not surprised. Like, Deion and company have done a really good job of going out there and getting some playmakers. So, I'm not sure that they've necessarily, over exceeded on any of these positions necessarily, but I do think you'd like to see a little bit more out of some of these defensive guys, man. I mean, even real quick on running back, or on offense, to Kalen Taylor, another guy that we've seen in some spurts. But on defense, I think the two guys that stand out to me that you'd like to see, or maybe you were hoping to see a little bit more, is Martavius French along with Reginald Hughes. Those were two guys that I remember Reginald Hughes and Jaheim Otis, excuse me.
Yep.
You could maybe loop Martavius in there as well. But like, these are three guys, and with Oates in particular, like coming from Alabama, like that's the thing that kind of like jumps off the page to you, is like, there's a guy that they're getting, who's committed and playing for Bama that's now coming to play for Colorado, and Deion, like, you're expecting some real impact coming from the SEC to now coming in the Big 12 and whatnot. And we just haven't seen it there. And I think, this defense at times, right, we've talked about Tafik Byard stepping up as that leader and providing some of that bite and whatnot. But I think you were hoping to get that from the Jaheim Otises of the world, the Gabriel Lightfoots of the world, and some of these other guys, Reginald Hughes included, Mekhi Vickers. Like, they just haven't played up to the expectation that I think we had hoped they would. I don't think it's a question of talent, though. I just think as a unit, they haven't done it.
Yeah, if I could go back in time, I'd probably tell myself to chill on Jaheim Otis a little bit, just because I was really high on him, and he was gassed up to me by those around the Alabama program. I asked around, I was like, okay, what's the deal with this guy? And they're like, all-American talent, and I think I just turned my listening ears off after that because they all said something along the lines of all-American talent, but like walk-on effort level or walk-on passion, right? Like he does not, or that's probably not even fair because walk-ons are usually passionate. But the point being, he's not passionate. He doesn't care about football. That's sort of the notion that I was told, and I assumed like playing for Deion Sanders, playing for Warren Sapp, like I was like, okay, if there's anyone who can unlock this guy's potential, it'd be them. And unfortunately, I mean, we saw the video of him with Gilly the Kid with the very large hat. Makes your hat look like an extra small. And it was just like Gilly's like, hey, the coaches say you're the best player, but you don't care. Like you have kids to take care of and you could play at the next level, but you don't care. And like I just kept telling myself, you know what, it's going to work out, right? We saw a play against Georgia Tech that looked really good. And I was like, okay, there's the Jaheim Otis that we know and love. And like he has just been so far the most underwhelming or one of the most underwhelming players because he comes in with all these accolades of like SEC freshman, all SEC freshman, like former blue chipper. He's like 6'5", 350, ginormous dude. And it's like, okay, he'll figure it out. Like he has all of the right sort of intangibles and skill set, but apparently, and this is sort of the lesson I've learned with Deion Sanders' transfer portal experiment. It's not really like a transfer portal or a Deion Sanders lesson. It's just there's certain guys, and this goes for like any program around the country, when they leave certain programs nowadays with NIL, if a program wants to keep a player, they will probably throw him a bag and be like, okay, we want you to stay, right? If there's a guy leaving a program, there's probably a reason that the program's okay with him leaving. And I think when there's schools like LSU, Alabama, Auburn, which Colorado is now, I would say like 0 for 3 on Auburn transfers. Well, Colton Hood's probably the one success story, but he's now at Tennessee, so you can't really count him. But like there's certain schools where it's like, okay, you get a transfer from a blue chip or like FCC powerhouse, but there's a reason those guys left. And so now I think moving forward, I'm going to be a little bit more cautious about those guys because Jaheim Otis has been a very, very, I would say a big letdown, right? I just thought he'd be like a all Big 12 kind of guy, and that's not sort of the performance we've got from him. So those are our star transfers, are not so much star transfers. When we come back, we're going to look around the Big 12 and talk about some of the biggest games of the week. But first, a quick break. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Mazda. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same attention to how we craft every model. You can make every drive feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making us your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure to like, subscribe, follow. We're nearing 8,000 subs. Let's get there. Let's get there by the. Let's do it. You know, let's get that number up. Utah or BYU? I would say arguably the biggest game of the Big 12 slate this weekend. Utah is fighting to stay in that Big 12 mix, and BYU is fighting to stay undefeated. And I think if you're Colorado and AP, this is my working theory. You don't want to get too ahead of yourself because obviously it's one win and you still have a long ways to go. But last year there was, I think it was 7 teams in the Big 12, maybe not 7 to 9, that when the last week rolled around, they had a mathematical chance of making it to the Big 12 title game. Colorado was one of those teams, and they needed a few things to happen here and there. And like either way, I feel like there is a potential possibility that if Colorado is able to string together some wins, they could find themselves with that mathematical chance. And one of the best ways of finding themselves in that position is Utah losing. Right, because assuming Utah loses this week, you beat them next week, and all of a sudden you're sitting there with the same record as the Utes in Big 12 play with the advantage. So if you're Colorado, who you rooting for? What is your rooting guide for the Holy War this weekend?
I think you gotta root for BYU, right? Because you want that loss to BYU to be more quality, right? I mean, I guess then if Utah wins, right, then you go out there and beat Utah off the bye, then I guess that win maybe carries some more weight here. But they were in that game against BYU, and I'll probably be rooting for BYU myself. I think you want to go out there, take care of business against Utah, and then have that loss, losing to Georgia Tech as well. in another close game, and they've been a pretty decent program this year. Those, I think, stand up a little bit stronger.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think too, like you have to sort of it all comes down to like wins and losses in the Big 12. Like you need certain teams to win here, certain teams to lose there. And if you're Colorado, like you want to get a little selfish. You want the teams that are like right ahead of you to start losing. Just because right now you're sitting, let's see, you're second to last place in the Big 12. There's 3 teams that are 0-3, and then there's a couple that are 1-2, and then there's a hodgepodge at 2-2, 2-1, right? And so Utah, Arizona State are both sitting at 2-1 with prime opportunities to lose. Houston, same thing. So you really want these teams around the Big 12 to lose. So we're just going to go rapid fire through the Big 12 slate, pick a winner. So we both pick BYU over Utah. Arizona at Houston. Arizona's favorite. I'm going Arizona. I think Houston's run comes to an end here.
I would tend to agree. I think Houston's been a little, I don't want to say fugazi, but just like what I saw against them against CU, I was like, this is more so about CU not playing well than it was about Houston. So I'll go with Arizona.
Yeah, because Houston, I mean, they nearly lost to Oregon State. They were just absolutely slaughtered by Texas Tech, and then they beat up on Oklahoma State, which, I mean, who isn't these days?
Yeah, exactly.
And then we have, I feel like it has a name, but I can't think of the name. Baylor versus TCU. I want to say it's like the Blue Bonnet Bowl, but I feel like the fans hate it. So whatever. Baylor, TCU. I think TCU is the better team. I actually have TCU as one of the better teams in the Big 12. So that's who I'm riding with, and they're at home.
Yeah, I hate to keep agreeing with you because it's not great for like the conversation, but I mean, I completely agree with you. Like, I think TCU, they've shown me something. Obviously, last couple of years were a bit down for them, but it looks like they're getting back to it. So yeah, especially at home, I'll go with TCU here.
Okay, and then we have West Virginia at UCF. And we're probably going to agree here. I have UCF. I think West Virginia is unfortunately the worst team in the Big 12, and I don't foresee them having very many wins. Do you agree there?
Yeah, that was the one game that if CU didn't beat Iowa State, I was like, that might be their only win left on the schedule. So
yeah, that was the one game where I was like, that's the only time Colorado would be favored this year. So,
yep.
Which could still probably be true, just based on how the odds makers view Colorado. Moving on, we have number 7 Texas Tech at Arizona State. Sam Leavitt is probable for Arizona State, so I think that changes some things. I'm going to go upset here. I think Arizona State, with a healthy Sam Leavitt, can upset Texas Tech.
I think they could. I don't think they will. I like what Texas Tech. I like the product they've been putting out on the field this season, so I'll lean with them.
Okay, and then lastly, Cincinnati, number 24 Cincinnati, that is. The Bearcats ranked, taking on Oklahoma State. I'm calling Cincinnati this year's Arizona State. So if they make a run to the Big 12, I don't know about the playoff, but the Big 12 title, I won't be surprised. So I'm riding with the Bearcats.
Yeah, I think so. I will agree with you as well on that front. I think Cincinnati's a fun team.
Yeah, Cincinnati's a fun team, and hopefully all these teams the teams that need to lose, I hope they lose, and the teams that need to win, go get them, fellas.
I'm with you, brother. I'm with you.
Yeah, go get them. AP, appreciate you hopping on. Tell the people where they could find you because you're a busy lad yourself.
Yeah, at Media by AP on social, Denver Sports 1043 The Fan as well. And interesting times for the Colorado Buffaloes, interesting time for Denver sports. So check us out over there.
Yeah, and you know where to find us over here at Locked On Buffs. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast every single day. AP will be joining us more frequently because we love the guy. He's a fun dude, and we love talking ball. So appreciate you guys for hopping on, making us your first listen of the day. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. We're really close to 8,000 subs, so let's get there, and we'll see all you guys tomorrow. Hope all of you have a great day.